Central Park, 843 acres of natural beauty in the middle of Manhattan skyscrapers. What seems to be nature's gift is actually the result of hard work and dreams. An oasis to escape to in the middle of a busy day, a breath of fresh air. First tree was planted on October 17, 1858, and by 1873, 5 million trees were growing.
Beautiful Central Park, full of grass, trees, and bushes, but built from the determination and dreams of one man. I'm Michelle Gilchrist, and this is my favorite place in Central Park. What's your favorite place in Central Park?
My favorite part of Central Park is Strawberry Fields. And no, that's my favorite part. I like this section at lunchtime, but after lunch, you know.
Well, this is one of my favorite spots here in Central Park because I can come here and sit and contemplate and think, which is one of my favorite things to do, especially when you have a lot on your mind. But the other favorite part of mine is Strawberry Fields, because I'm very fond of John Lennon and the Beatles and their good music and stuff, and it's a very tranquil area. I think it's quite beautiful.
My favorite part is the way the boat side is, the boathouse. And I love it, and I see a lot of people going in and out, renting boats and a bicycle. I see a lot of kids playing around. I just wasn't there about half an hour ago, and I loved it. And I like to walk around the park, but that's my favorite part.
Andrew Jackson Downing envisioned this park in 1849. Mr. Downing drowned in a steamboat accident on the Hudson in 1852. This is his legacy. This is Winston Gilchrist signing off from Central Park, New York. Welcome. The reason why I go way back to, I first produced that in 1989. That was the first piece I did as a TV producer. I was in school, matter of fact, television and production school. I played that because of the fact that my daughter is in that piece. And I was, we're talking about children. And I know how I would feel if my child was taken away from me when she was a baby. And you see so much on television of people coming back and, as they're grown and trying to find their roots, they seek who their real mothers and fathers were. This is a problem, and today's guest, Shalom, from People United for Children, deals with this constantly, daily. It's a constant reminder of what the Administration for Children's Services does as a profession, stealing children. Welcome today's guest, Shalom.
Glad to be here.
Shalom.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm fine.
Can you get him to turn down the radio upstairs, please? Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm fine.
Good.
And I'm glad to be here with you all today.
Well, it's today's topic is about the Administration for Children's Services. I'm sure you deal with this constantly.
Yes.
We see people that you're involved with constantly being abused by the Administration for Children's Services. What has been your experience with this?
Well, we have a number of people who are coming in where their children have been removed from their homes and placed in the foster care. Many of them are in situations where their children have been removed without even a proper investigation. That it means that someone makes a call and someone downtown someplace that sends someone by to pick up your children and place that child in foster care. A lot of that is part of the hysteria that came about with cases like the Alyssa Esguerro case and others that helped to shape public policy in such a way that most people who are working in these industries are looking now to, as a cover your rear end type of situation. They are pulling children out of homes and letting the parents go and fight for them in court. And some children are pulled, as I said, for allegations that cannot be substantiated and actually are false. And then you have another segment of children who are removed from homes where there is abuse in the home. But as part of our piece at People United for Children, we believe that no child should be removed from its home without a proper investigation or without there being other types of services and backup for families, especially children.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we have a system that's overburdened with children in foster care. And laws have been changed to shape what's happening in such a way that if you are not able to get your children out of the foster care system within 15 months, and this was the old law under the Ask for Adoption and Save Families Act, your parental rights would be terminated. Now, new initiatives are being placed on that where if you are not able to get your child out of foster care in 12 months, your parental rights can be terminated. You know, things are getting in such a way that it's really almost impossible for parents to prove their innocence in such a short span of time, because while you have these laws that say you can go to court and you can prove your rights and this and that's going to happen, oftentimes our parents are going to court and they're finding that different cases, their case in particular, the caseworker's not showing up. The medical reports that the judge has offered is not present. All kinds of postponements, and it's really at the judge's discretion as to whether or not at the end of the 12-month period or the 15-month period, if your child still remains in foster care, as to whether or not they'll be moving to terminate your parental rights. And by that, they mean in your relationship with your child, but more importantly, they mean to end the relationship of your child with you.
And put them up for adoption.
Well, part of this new law is supposed to help children become adoptable so that they can put them up for adoption. But unfortunately, the staggering numbers of children in foster care today, I believe it's over 35,000, and it varies. Some days it's a little lower, some days it's a little higher, so it depends on how many they pick up daily. But the staggering numbers makes it impossible for all those children to ever be adopted.
But it's $40,000 involved in each child.
Well,
where does this $40,000
the
come from?
$40,000 comes into play in a way that children who are in foster care, the agencies, contract agencies for the most part, are the groups that house these children. And the Administration for Children Services, also known as ACS, also houses some of the children itself, but usually they kind of ship them out to other entities, which are called contract agencies, and the majority of them are really run by the Catholic Church, although other churches are involved in that situation as well. Now, the Catholic Church, among other institutions who do this contract work for children, receive certain amounts of money per day per child. It's a per diem basis. So part of the problem being it's no incentive for the Catholic Church or any other entity that has these children to return them to the parent, because they would lose part of that daily allotment of funds. You know, once the child enters the foster care system, someone comes out to the home or to the school and picks that child up. They take it to a place where they do what we would consider a strip search of the child. And they photograph the child from head to toe, looking for differing things that they could call abuse or neglect. It could be...
They look for stuff, don't know.
Yeah, they are trying to identify the abuse that has occurred on this child. It could be something where the child might have fallen in the park 4 years ago and was left with a remaining scar. No, the scar would probably still be there, and they would take a picture of that. And then what you would find yourself is being charged with physical abuse because of this situation that happened many years ago.
Nobody's complained about it?
That nothing happened. Well, no one may have complained about it. It could have been the type of thing where you even took the child to the doctor regarding it, and it was taken care of. But you see, now because of the hysteria that's going on in our communities, it's almost like a witch hunt. People are searching for children who are supposed to have been abused. And that's where the problem becomes in, because once the child gets in, and there are not enough foster parents to take them in. There are not enough adoptive parents to really adopt them. But our whole incentive and the way the laws are structured, it is put in such a way that people are paid to adopt your children. People in these various agencies are paid what we would call a brokerage fee to handle the adoption or to make arrangements for the adoption. The foster parents are paid, and their fee that they are paid is really kind of a minuscule kind of fee that's on the very bottom, because the majority of the monies that are going into foster care today from the differing governmental agencies, the state, the city, and the federal government, are going to keep those people on the top living luxuriously. And you know, it's interesting because we're moving into a time where we look at a system and we're supposed to be doing various things for the interest of the child. Oftentimes, the children, when they go into this system, they're giving law guardians, and the law guardians may speak to them or visit them once a year.
Right.
If the children are injured in any way in foster care, there's no place that they can call to make a complaint. There's actually nothing they can do to address the situation of the abuse that occurs while they're in the care of the Administration for Children's Services, ACS.
Let's be specific. Now, you and I went and visited Willie Handy.
Yes, we did. Yes, we
House
went.
of detention up in the Bronx.
That's right. That's right. I had to take off my shoes several times and shake my bra and do a few other things to go through the process of getting into the facility. It was a very interesting experience, to say the least.
Right.
But
now, this man, we both know is innocent. Now, I have
Yeah.
proof of this on videotape. We'll
Yeah.
run that piece later. But we'll give you an idea. This young man has been in prison for 16 months.
Yes, yes, he has.
16 months he's been in Bronx House of Detention. Why? Contempt of court. Now, you've heard about the system. Now, this young man is not able to tell the court, the judge, the law guardian, the corporate counsel, where his wife is with their newborn. Mind you. Now, this case started way back in April of '98. Here we are almost 2 years later.
Yes, yes.
Now, they're trying to terminate the rights of the mother because the mother is not to be found. Now, she doesn't want to come in and turn in her newborn. They've already gotten her 5-year-old on bogus charges, which they weren't able to prove in court.
Yeah.
Now, this lengthy trial, we just gave you the step-by-step, you know, the incentive for them taking children. There's money involved.
Oh, yes.
The incentive for caseworkers to lie, they get promotions.
Oh,
The
yes.
incentive for the judge, accusing a judge of being biased, you know, pro Administration for Children's Services. This is a $2 billion industry. Talking about Big Brother. Now, when I first heard about this case in '98, May of '98, I didn't believe any of it. I said, something is wrong with the parents. I didn't know Sharon at the time. And I didn't realize there were dedicated people, you know, I'm one of them now. I'm dedicated to getting to the truth. Now, part of the problem is that the judges and the law guardian and the corporate counsel are city employees. And they're trying to cover their backs because there's a lawsuit when they do something wrong. This is malicious prosecution in this case. Can you get them to lower their voices, please? Now, this is a problem of, you know, administrative, of the administration, Giuliani in particular. Now, I saw him on television on one of the primetime Sunday programs where he was boasting about the record of Administration for Children's Services and the police force. Now, we have a clue of what the police force is doing with the Diallo case. This is live, so any of you that saw the case this morning of the officers on the stand, anybody who saw the program last week, the lot that didn't come out about Boss and his alleged heroics of the day. I didn't see the program, but I just can't watch it because I know what happened behind the scene. Let's get back to the Handy case. In the Handy case, I tell you, I guess it's best shown by running the videotape. That way you won't hear us speak about it. You'll hear, let's go back to the beginning. Now we're going in front of Doctor's Hospital, it's in VTR 2, and we'll just go back to the beginnings of this whole story. Now I just want you to just listen carefully of the Handy story, and then we'll come back afterwards. All right? Thank you. Introduce yourself, please.
Arletha Handy.
Willie Handy.
Tell us about the story.
Okay, Gil. On March 23rd, we brought our daughter here to be examined because I saw on her underwear that there was a yellow stain. So as a concerned parent, I brought her here to see if it was some type of ointment that I should put on her. And my daughter was seen by Dr. D'Antonio of this hospital, who examined her, but he could not treat her. And we were later referred, after he examined her, he referred us to another hospital. But while he was examining her, he took gonorrhea cultures of my daughter, and I asked why. I didn't get a response, but I assumed that he was just doing a preliminary precaution concerning my daughter. He then told us to go to the regular treating physician where my daughter's treated, and he asked me where. I said Staten Island Hospital. So when we arrived at Staten Island Hospital, they also did the same exact tests, if not more broader. And we were treated. My daughter was treated and released, and prior to that, the doctor told us that she had an infection, a bacterial infection.
There was no gonorrhea involved?
No, sir. There was no gonorrhea involved. However, 3 days later, I got a visitor by the name of Shireen Ahmed of the Administration of Children's Services, who came to my door and said that she got a call from a doctor's hospital stating that my daughter had been tested positive for gonorrhea, and that they had to err to the side of safety by removing the child from the home and bringing her back to this hospital to be examined. At least that's what we thought, that she was coming here to be examined again. However, when we got here, we found out that she was not examined at all, that we were there because we were trying to get results from the second hospital we went to the same night, which was a Staten Island University hospital, who did the same tests.
Well, the end result is that they were accused of your daughter having gonorrhea, and she never had.
Yes, sir.
And we have proof from the hospital.
Yes, we do.
Well, can we go and see those records of where we have proof that your daughter never had gonorrhea?
Yes.
And as an end result, ACS has snatched your child, saying that she did have gonorrhea. And what are the charges against you?
Right now, the charges that are pending is that my daughter has gonorrhea. She's believed to have been sexually abused. Also, physical abuse is involved. And now we're told that she's exhibiting sexual behavior, meaning like the most recent one, they told us that my daughter pulled down a young child's pants and said, "Now you play daddy." At the same time, they claim my daughter is showing dirty movies. Where she's getting these movies from, I have no knowledge.
We're going to further investigate this, so we're going to move on. But just like you know, this is where the story all began. Here at Doctor's Hospital, Beth Israel.
Beth Israel.
The doctor's name again?
Dr. Michael D'Antonio was the one that reported that my daughter had been tested positive for gonorrhea. The same hospital, I want to add, also states that this child was tested negative for gonorrhea.
All right, thank you.
Then it's positive.
Same day.
Ever heard, you know, but what do you want me to do?
Just tell us where it's
Right now, we cannot talk to the child. Did you know that? We cannot get a phone call from her. She knows our number. We cannot talk to her on the phone at all. They also claim that she's exhibiting sexual behavior, that she pulled the little boy's pants down and said, now you play daddy.
Oh, if it's just...
Yeah, well, just when you're ready.
He don't,
go ahead.
you know, if you want to read it, it's up to you.
Well,
No,
you
just
take-
tell us what happened when she first came here.
I'll tell you the story as I know it, okay? Excuse me. You came on March 26, 1998. Patient was involved in a motor vehicle accident approximately a year ago, and she was complaining of some pain on her left arm. We examined her. We saw a little lump on her left cheek. Nothing really too horrendous. We thought it was like a hematoma and some muscle bruises, and I thought maybe have a little muscular nervous problem with the arm, little brachial plexus, and I told you to go to see Dr. Steven Schwartzberg, who was a neurologist. And kind of on an aside, you said, you know, my daughter has a little vaginal discharge. Do you mind taking a look? So he looked. Didn't see anything. Didn't see anything that made me suspicious of anything. It's a little discharge. I thought your child had a little non-specific vaginitis. Very common in kids. No big deal. Tell you to give her a vinegar bath, and all is well, and kind of sent you on your way. That evening, I got a call from some man who identified himself as the father of the child, who said that he just got a call from a hospital, doctor's hospital, and said his child had gonorrhea. Well, that took me back a little bit because I thought that was an amazing story. So the next day I went over to the doctor's hospital, where they told me that, yes, indeed, the child had a positive smear, and the culture was pending.
And you had just examined her
I examined her the day before.
the day before.
Yeah, but I didn't examine her for gonorrhea. I examined her looking at the child, her vaginal area, and to tell you the truth, I didn't see any kind of abnormality there at all. I
Was
thought,
her hymen intact?
in my opinion, she was. 100% she was, in my opinion. She was not bruised, she was not swollen, she was not ripped, she was not bleeding. She was, looked like to me, a perfectly normal, healthy little girl. Okay? They told me that they could not take care of her correctly, and they sent her over to Staten Island Hospital that evening.
True.
So that evening, I went over to Staten Island Hospital, and I talked with the people over there. I believe it was Dr. Sami Saad, and he kind of reiterated the same thing I said. He said the child looked perfectly intact to him, that the child looked perfectly normal to him, that the child did not display any kind of abnormal motions or abnormal activity, whatever, when he examined the child. And according to him, the Staten Island Hospital smear was negative. From my understanding, the Staten Island culture remained also negative all along.
In other words, they didn't find any gonorrhea.
That is my understanding. I never saw the actual reports, but that was my understanding from talking with Dr. Saad. That's true.
So who is it that found gonorrhea?
Do you want us to bring the reports in?
No, just tell me who...
I never saw any reports per se. I can only say that Doctors Hospital had told me that they suspected gonorrhea and that they felt they saw intercellular gram-negative diphthococci, which mean gonorrhea. But did I see the reports? No, I never saw the reports.
Well, in your investigation, you didn't see any of this.
Say
Well,
that
maybe
again?
the Staten Island Hospital, they said that the smear was negative.
That's what the assumption is. That's what I was told at Staten Island Hospital, and I was told something else at Doctors Hospital. At Doctors Hospital, I was told they found intercellular gram-negative diphthococci, and at Staten Island Hospital, they said they did not find that. Now, both are from talking to people, neither are from looking at lab reports.
Documents.
Yeah, I didn't see any documents on any of this stuff. The next thing I knew is you guys called up with this guy. And I told you the same story, and you said, I was the father, I didn't call you.
That's right.
And, whoa, what is this? But who called me? I don't know. He did, he did identify himself as the father. He gave me his name, but the truth is, I don't remember what he said his name was. It wasn't something that I thought I had to remember. He said he was the father. I assumed he was the father. And from there, you told me a horrendous story about child welfare and so on and so forth. You know, your lawyer did contact me. He has the records. And more than that, I don't know.
Thank you. You was telling me that when we asked you what is normal behavior and you explained it, you know, how the child behaves was normal behavior.
Yeah, I would think that a child who was abused sexually should act differently when we're examining her down below. Usually these children will act one of two ways. Either they're going to fight like the Dickens to keep away from you,
Okay.
or they're going to lay back and going to be doing anything you want to you. Okay? This child acted like a normal child, in my opinion. She fought a little bit. She wasn't happy with me looking over there, but she didn't grab a hold of mommy and scream and cry and carry on and protect me, protect me, protect me. And she didn't act like a mannequin where she'd lay down, do what you want to me, and forget about it already. She, in my opinion, acted like a perfectly healthy, normal, average baby girl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. I really appreciate it. You helped a lot.
But this is true.
I know.
So tell me how is it that ACS, how did ACS get into this again?
Well, that night, after the appointment with Dr. Joe Stefosky, the worker came to the apartment and said that Doctor's Hospital said that she was tested positive for gonorrhea.
And this is after this, give us your name, Doctor?
No. She was tested for gonorrhea before I saw her.
Oh, before.
Before.
Yes.
She was. I saw
But they
her
got a
on
report.
the 26th.
Okay.
She apparently was at the hospital on the 25th.
Third.
The 23rd?
23rd.
23rd.
Okay.
I'm after the fact.
Okay.
Okay, not before the fact.
All right.
So because the smear would take a couple days to get going. So what they did was they tested her. You went for help. They tested her. They sent her to another hospital. And then I'm the third person involved.
Okay.
Okay, after Dr. Saad at Staten Island Hospital,
We came
you wound up here.
Okay.
Okay, and that evening I got a call from whoever it was who said that my child has gonorrhea. Then I, the next day, went to St. Vincent, to Doctor's Hospital, heard what they had to say, and they told me that child went to Staten Island Hospital that evening, the same evening of that incident. That evening I called Staten Island Hospital and talked with Dr. Saad.
And let me add, Gil, to the record that the day before we came here, there were a week in advance I made an appointment because my daughter had been involved in this motor vehicle accident, which we had to follow up so we can get these bills paid by the transit authority over in Brooklyn. So in order to do that, we have to show and prove that there was some damage still pending with my daughter. So that was my reason for making an appointment here. But I thought that it would be only on the safe side just to check, since he is a pediatrician, to see if this yellow stain was indeed clearing up. Was it definitely the vaginitis also?
This is before ACS got involved then?
Yes, this is prior to ACS.
So we already had confirmation from this doctor and Staten
Saad.
Island that there was no gonorrhea? Okay.
No,
Well,
they can't,
he
they
didn't
can't
test
exactly
for
say
gonorrhea.
that. I did not test a child for gonorrhea. I did not suspect the kid had gonorrhea. I had no evidence, I had no reason to suspect this kid had any kind of gonorrhea.
Right.
This kid's vaginal area looked normal to me. This kid did not act abnormally. This kid did not have a kind of discharge that would make me think this kid was sexually abused or had any kind of venereal disease.
Right, there's no
Okay?
discharge of it.
This child looked to me like a perfectly healthy little baby girl with a little bit of vaginitis caused from wiping the wrong way, from her own little fingers touching her body. Nothing I haven't seen in the past, nothing that I wouldn't suspect wouldn't see again. Just a perfectly healthy little girl who needed a little bit of vinegar douching to clear her vagina up a little bit.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Doc. I really appreciate the
I
time.
can't believe you guys.
No, I can't either.
It goes
And it's on and on and on. We got a September the 15th court date.
slowly banned.
You
The
don't-
whole summer.
But your kid is growing up without you,
Right,
and I think that's wrong.
yeah.
That
And
is.
This is the first time you've heard
fifth
anything
foster
else, right?
I've never heard a.
Now, you've heard the story. Now,
Yes.
that's in his entirety. Now, that was, as you saw, in '98. As long as I saw the date. What date was that? Oh, my God. June '98. Now, this is year 2000. Now, Willie has been in jail since October of 98. Now, if in that piece there, Arletha is pregnant. Now, this is just in June, so that child was taken in April, and this is June. She had a baby. Now, they're taking the first child, the 5-year-old, on these bogus charges. Then, since they had the first child, now you remember the system that Mrs. Salam explained to you, they came after the newborn child. All right? Now, why do they want the newborn? Since they didn't prove their case on the first child. All right? The wife, seeing that they were abusive, they kept delaying the case, delaying the case, delaying the case, delaying the case so they can get to this 15-month period, which you mentioned, so they can determine the rights of the parents. To even, then it goes up for adoption. It goes into adoption, and then if you win on appeal in the appellate court, like somebody should see this tape, and even if you win in the appellate court, your child still stays in the system. And can you imagine that? Can you imagine being these parents? Can you imagine being locked up for 16 months? And this guy is quite sane. I mean, Willie's attitude, I mean, he's a strong believer in God, and God, thank God that God has helped him keep his sanity. I mean, we were discussing it last week when we went to visit him. I don't know if I could keep my sanity under these cases.
Well, it's difficult, but you have to maintain yourself as best you can, because it's upon you to prove you're innocent. That's one of the ways that the system works. In most other courts, you go in and they are supposed to prove that you are guilty. But the way the system is set up now, you have to go in with the intention of proving your innocence, because as time changes and the system goes further and further along the way, it becomes even more difficult, because this child is only one of the, 35,000 children that's in foster care today. It's only one. And each month, 1,000 children enter, and some leave because they age out and other things happen to them. But
how many
it's
cases
very
do you
sad.
think are this extreme where they outright lie? I mean, now,
well, you see, part of the reason why it gets to be what you would call this extreme is because there is no checks and balances in terms of the caseworkers. So whether they lie, whether they don't lie, this is just perceived them acting in the best interest of the child to assist the child in being safe. Okay?
but the hospital reports were submitted. They were in the file. Everybody knows that Staten Island University smear was negative. Everybody knows that the third hospital where she,
Well, you see, often,
Ahmed,
yeah,
the
but you see,
caseworker,
oftentimes you'll find cases when they come in and they remove your children from the home. No one really wants to admit they made a mistake.
okay, all right.
Okay, because we're in an administration where we are told, the people are told to take children and save them and put them into the situations where they can be saved. And as you're saving these children, it becomes more and more difficult for you to prove these situations. Oftentimes we have all kinds of parents who are coming to us stating that their crime is one thing. We had one father who lost his children and is fighting to get his child back because he failed to meet an eye examination appointment with a doctor.
Yeah.
And in that case, once he showed that the appointment, he had taken his child to for medical examination of the child's eyes, and the doctor had found that the child had 20/20 vision, the child still remains in foster care, and they're going through the process. You know, it's not unnatural
We have a
for
phone call.
symptoms to change. Yes.
People I like to call are lawyers that are willing to give us work pro bono and help us out here, because it's hard to fight a $2 billion agency. All right.
It is very
and I've
difficult.
tried to report on this case as often as possible in the Handy case, and you can see how difficult it is. Now, if anybody saw this videotape, they would say, "Why is that kid, in the system? Why are they chasing the mother? for the newborn, because the newborn is more money because they're not bound and they're not attached to anybody. They can easily put it up for adoption. Why is the trial dragged out? So they can terminate the rights of the parents. Now you have a phone. Is there a phone call? Somebody on the line? Somebody still there? No phone call? Wilbur? All right, let's continue. I like anybody to call that's a lawyer.
And anybody really with some free time who'd like to go in as part of a support for these parents, because oftentimes you're sitting in this situation in the courtroom and you're there all by yourself.
Right.
Family court is open to the public, and as a citizen of these United States, you are allowed by law to go into court as a spectator and see what's happening in there. And it's very important for many of these parents to get the type of support that can happen, because as you can see from the situation up in Albany in the Amadou Diallo case and in other cases where there is public support, there's a different type of action that takes place in terms of your being able to get the type of defense you need. Because when you look at the type of judges who are there, many of them are former prosecutors who were appointed to those positions. So they're really not coming into family court with a family court background so that they know the intricacies in terms of what's happening there. They're really there to as prosecutors. And this is why the situations are moving the way it is, because you have that type of background that's working within the court itself. You know, it's an interesting situation with the types of funds that are going through and the fact that nothing is happening to assist parents and to assist children. Like if, let's say, this particular couple were to get the child back, even though our federal government has given monies, along with the state and the city, to put things in place that help your child to be adopted and to live a life in foster care, no funds are available for you to remend your family once your child is given back to you. Many of these children suffer a tremendous amount of trauma because of their removal and placement into foster care.
Well, you might mention that the foster parents, we found out, last time I was in court, I found out from the sister, she ran into the foster mother, and anyways, we found out that the foster parents told the child that her parents were dead. This is a 5-year-old child.
Well, this is part of the type of mental abuse that occurs while people are in foster care itself. It may not necessarily be to the extreme that your parents are dead, but oftentimes children are told that the reason that they're there is because their parents don't want them, that their parents put them out, their parents ran away and left them. And since you don't have that type of visitation with your child, you can't really sit down and explain to your child what's happening, and oftentimes the caseworker will tell you not to mention any information regarding this case to your child because they don't want the child upset. But on the other hand, if the child is one that is has a tight bond with the parents and is crying out for the mother, crying out for the father and wanting to see them, the child may find himself in a mental institution or being placed on psychotropic drugs because of this type of stress. But no one will look at it and say, well, maybe this child is suffering from withdrawal from mother or father. They'll just look at it as some sort of mental issue that needs to be dealt with in a situation where they can be put on these psychotropic drugs. You know, like in this case with the Handys, we don't know what kind of trauma is going to occur because while this father has been incarcerated, he has been denied visitation rights for the child. So it was very easy for them to say that the father was dead or the father and the mother was this, that, or anything. But let's say once he gets out of prison and if he's able to reestablish visitation, then what are you going to tell that child?
Right.
You know, when the child comes to see the father and realizes he's not dead, you know, it's going to look as if the father was hiding out in some way from the child, you know. And even now, as we look at this case, the Handy case, where you had them going into, I believe it was 4 different hospitals, if I'm correct? Three different hospitals.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Okay, and each hospital performing these tests to see if they could find some sort of venereal disease. Once you come to the conclusion that each one of these doctors are stating that there is no venereal disease, I'm sure Mr. Handy and Mrs. Handy felt that this would be all over,
Right.
that they would be free of this burden and be able to go on with their lives.
They even thought that this videotape would be submitted. I actually tried to give the corporate counsel the videotape. So look, I thought it'd be a simple enough thing to say, hey, look at the videotape. Somebody called posing as the father. Now, who called posing as the father?
It's very, very difficult, you know.
Now, who do you think called posing
I
as the
have
father?
no idea. It could have been anyone. You know, it could have been
Well, who would
anyone.
do something like that?
You know, it could have been anyone among the people that they came in contact with who knew this type of thing was going on, who was trying to help bolster up their case. But once the issue was settled as to the child not being sexually abused,
Right.
and I understand the judge, because he was unfamiliar with this new type of the illness that the child was supposed to have had, since it was no sexual abuse that he had came across in the past. It wasn't your syphilis, gonorrhea, or anything that was known. He ordered a medical expert from the disease control to come in and explain to him what it was the child had. And even that person, which really would be the equivalent of the 4th expert,
Right.
stated that the child had not had any venereal disease.
She was so angry with this case. I mean, this woman, she was so upset at the judge. And the judge sat there and quizzed her like he was a prosecutor.
Yeah.
I sat there in court and watched this. I couldn't believe this.
Well, this is what happens. This is why when you go into court,
Well, why is the
you
judge
must
so
be
adamant about
very
this?
serious, because he's serious. He's
Seriously
serious
about
about
what-
doing
but he
his job.
knows it-
And his job,
But
he
the caseworker
feels,
even recanted her story.
yes, but
Said that she knew that there was no gonorrhea. She admitted that she lied on the stand, and the transcript is missing.
you see, so all of this is stuff
Oh, I
that
should've
has to
said
be
that.
looked at and looked at seriously
See, now,
in the future in terms of these
I take that one
situations.
back. See,
But you
I
know,
messed
it's
up.
all part of the situation when we're looking at these cases and how we perceive these cases. Because one of the things that people look at, like the Handys, you go in and you say, well, I haven't done this crime, and we're going to be able to show this, and momentarily, you know, everybody say, I'm sorry, and we'll go home. But once you get into a courtroom situation, it's really not about who committed the crime. It now becomes a situation in terms of who can best prove their case. So it's not about guilt, it's
It's
not
a
about
game. It's a game.
innocence. It's a game that we play. And if you lose the game, then the institution, I believe about now, it's making what, about $315 million it's getting. And it would probably,
You mean the system?
The system,
The
yes,
foster
and it's
care
probably
system.
even more now.
Okay.
Oh, because those were old figures that the system gets. But when you look at the type of money that's funneling into this system, there's a financial incentive to keep it moving the way it's moving, simply because no one wants to give up those funds. Just last year, the Administration for Children's Services, ACS, put out a request for proposals from different organizations to be contract agents for the children and to do various services for children and families. And the agencies that were able to win these grants were agencies that stated that they were going to have more children. They were going to find more children to house in their institution. So if you were proposing that you were only going to work with the 100 children and you only expect to work with 100 more children next year, then you would not likely be funded.
Now, tell me this. Do you have any, do you have any proof or any indication that the caseworkers are working in cahoots with the foster care agency. Now, this I know is going into court.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
the caseworker and ACS are so close that I can't help but believe, I mean, in the Handy case in particular, these people that are involved in this situation, they're so callous about how they do things. They have no concern about the child. They're just worrying about, you know, getting the child for adoption.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
this particular child the parents' rights are about to be terminated, and now the foster parent wants to adopt the child, the same foster parent that lied to the child saying that their parents were dead. Now, in this situation, the foster care agency gets how much money to put this kid in adoption? How much money do they get?
well, that figure,
Do you
they
think
don't
the caseworker
disclose.
is getting a
They don't
kickback?
really, they don't, well, I don't think the caseworker is really getting a kickback
Promotion.
in the normal sense of what you would perceive as that. But, you know, there's a certain number of children that they are expected to save.
Okay.
There are a certain number of children that they are going to go in and testify with, you know, and even if we've had situations where it was clear that the caseworkers committed perjury. Then the question becomes, well, do you throw the case out or do you just move forward knowing that we have a person who's committed perjury on the stand? Now, most of the times, the system moves forward with that case because their justification is whether or not, if the person commits perjury or not, the thing that happened to the child, that person's only trying to save the child from this batterer, this abuser, or whatever it is that you've done to put your child, to have the child put in this kind of situation. You're trying to save the child. But in most cases, the damage that's done to children is astronomical. The vast majority of the children will have an association with the prison, and this is over 70%. The vast majority of the children will never ever be adopted. They will never have a loving home. When they leave foster care, over 80% seek out their true mothers and fathers.
Of course you would.
Many of them may never be able to find them because of the fact that they've been terminated from them and are like they are legal orphans. They have no idea where to look to find these people, you know, where they live or any of this kind of stuff. It's very sad. Many of them, they go through various programs within ACS where if you're 18, you can decide that you want to stay, and they will gear you into a program where it's supposed to train you to live on your own at the age of 21. So that's between 18 and 21. After you leave that program, many of those children are the homeless children that you see on the street. You know, within 6 months, they're homeless.
So they're
it's
bringing
really
people
sad.
for the other complex, then the prison complex that they make money
Well,
from.
it's kind of when you look at it in the
We should bring out
overlying
that the majority of these kids are
that
black,
is it.
right? We might bring
Oh
out
yes, the
all right.
majority of the children who are geared for the system are going to be black and
Hispanic.
people who have children of color.
Okay.
Those are going to be the little colored children are going to be in this system. 72%, I believe, are children who are black African American children. 23% are Latino children in mixed hue, with the majority of them also being darker. And you end up with 1% white, and the other percents are going to be other. Now, there are no records kept on the number of Asian children that they have in care. They're just flopped into the other batch, so you don't really know how many Indian, how many are from Japan, how many are from China, and how many are from Pakistan, how many are from Guam, and places like that. They're all just plopped into a melting pot type of situation. But right now, for those people who are listening, one of the best things you can do is to try to offer some sort of support to parents. And it's difficult because we all want to save children. We don't want any children hurt, our children or anybody else's children. And in that scenario, we also don't want people who have not hurt their children to have to go to a system that will hurt them. You know, we have people coming to us from time to time who talk about how their children were removed and placed into situations where the daughter has been raped and is now pregnant. Situations where the boy was playing outside and was hit by a car. You know, different types of situations. And these people who have our children are supposed to be protecting them. I would imagine from the types of monies that this agency gets per child, system-wide, we should really have the majority of them able to go to Harvard or Yale or any other institution instead of being homeless and trying to fill out their way on the street, because that's the kind of dollars are going in. You know, the monies for the in-track are there, but no one is talking about the solution to the problem itself, and that solution obviously is the one that invests in parents, that invests in children, and invests in families. Because if you are declaring a large portion of families unworthy, then that lessens the pile of worthy people for these children to be with. Now, the majority of children you find in this system are there because their families don't have housing.
Nobody's going to care about a child more so than their parents, than their
their natural parents. That is so true.
There's a lot of abuse in foster care.
Well, this is one of the reasons why you have situations like you've stated with the person the foster parent who's taking care of the handy child. This is a young child. It's easy to control the child. You don't have to worry about the child crying for the mother and father if you've told the child stories that the child's parents are dead. You don't have to worry about taking them to visit, to ask for visits, or any of that stuff, because the child now believes the parents are dead.
So
it becomes easier for you to have a child that's going to work with you, because they know that they really don't have any parents. Their parents are dead. You know, it's sad. It's sad.
It's truly sad. I mean, it boggles the mind how this sort of stuff can go on. You know, it still amazes me how these people are getting away with it.
Well, it's going on, and it's happening every day, and nothing is being done to change the way it's happening, because right now the people who are being affected by it are those people who are poor, who are homeless, those people who need services and need assistance are the main ones that are under attack, because the main predictor in terms of whether or not your child will be placed in foster care often is where you live. What is your income? You know, and we find a lot of these people who are in foster care fighting for their children are children who are poor, children who had to go into battered women's shelter where their children have been removed. You know, all types of situations like that with family and parents. And we as a society have to start addressing this issue in a way that is humane, where we do more than just give lip services to the best interest of the child, because realistically the best interest of the child is to be in a stable family, a family that has a opportunity for employment, a family that has a home that they can live in. And we find, if we look back in the years, because I always talk about the good old days. In the good old days, there were those services. There were work programs for people to get jobs. There were housing programs for people to get places to stay. There were all kinds of social services available for families and to support the family and to support the children who lived in those families and their parents. You know, this is not the way it is today. Right now, we are really committed to the other end of the support, and that is to support and develop institutions so that there really won't be any need for families at a certain point. You know, we'll have machines raising children somewhere down the road, and I hope this is a gross exaggeration on my part,
I-
but it's really sad where we are today with the state of children and with the state of the family in this country and in the world.
I just thank God for Manhattan Neighborhood Network and just the pleasure of presenting the truth to the public. It's very difficult watching television today, being a producer myself, because I see some of the stuff going on. It's beyond me how anybody, could put it on the air. The suggestions in the Diallo case. Now, I have next week we're going to have Graham Weatherspoon on again, and this is a police officer that's very into this this case. He actually was on this scene, and we had him on last week. Those of you that watched last week know what I'm talking about. But there's so many things that our mayor, Giuliani, is so proud of. Our police force and Administration for Children's Services. Now, we've exposed you just one case. I personally am involved with this up to, it's like my family. I've gotten so involved. Like I say, you get so touched by people that are being abused. I mean, can you imagine somebody taking your child on bogus charges such as this? So we need your help. We need you to call in. Any lawyers that want to come in and help, please call. I think you saw a number up there, right? You can call the studio, or you can call me. I forgot to put my number up. 283-2693. We only have a few minutes left, but...
And those of you who need our assistance can
I forgot
call us at People United for Children, and that's 212-426-7557.
Say that again, please.
212-426-7557. We need bodies. We need people who can help. We need people who can volunteer to be of service, not only for the children, but for their families as well. And when you help the family, the mother and the father, you can't do anything but help the child.
Amen. Amen to that. We might note on this Handy case that the judge did find the family guilty, not of sexual abuse, but of neglect. And this neglect is some bogus charge that supposedly had been shown. Now, the entire trial was predicated on the child having gonorrhea. Now, you've seen in the videotape that the doctor said it didn't exist. He examined the child 2 days after the alleged positive culture showed up, which was never exist. They never could prove that. They could never prove that. So they came up with another story. And this is a story of neglect. Now, supposedly, the caseworker made up a story that they were showing the child porno movies, which is ridiculous. Here's another case of trying to cover their backsides. So in that, we'll come back next week and you'll see some more. Live from the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, I'd like to thank my guests today. Sharon, it's always a pleasure. We just have to continue to fight. I mean, there's nothing else about it. I mean, I get upset every time I talk about this one. I get upset about a lot of stuff that goes on that's wrong. But we need your help out there. And please call in. All right? Thank you. Any closing words you'd like to say? You have a few minutes?
Well, just call in.
We have about 30 seconds.
Okay, call in, come in. We need your support.
Your phone number again?
212-426-7557. We need all kind of people to come in and help